Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to our second Think Tank Thursday. Again, if you joined us last month, we've started this series. And the idea of the series is to try to bring together our alumni and also other professionals within the real estate industry to dive deeper into a topic that a lot of people are wondering about. So this month, of course, we're doing Proptech. And again, the title of the series is What's Hot and What's Not. And what we're hoping to do today is kind of enlighten those in the audience to some of the things that are really going to stand out and we really need to be paying attention to. And some of the things that maybe it's going to take a little bit longer and or there might not make it. So it's a big bad world out there. There is a lot happening and it's just continuing to accelerate as we try to get out of COVID and get our buildings up and running again. So we thought this was a good topic and we hope you agree. So Rob Valero and I are both with the Center for Real Estate and Urban Analysis at George Washington University. And for those of you not familiar with the university and the program, it's a program that's been around for about 10 years. And the center is here to help bridge the students to the industry, and then of course bring the industry back to the students as well as our research. So this is an example of how we try to provide opportunities to both our students and our alumni to help them on the continuous learning path that we all have to be in this super dynamic industry. So with that, again, my name is Elaine Warzala. And I'm the chair of the center, and we welcome you. And I'd like to turn it over to Bill Kane. Bill Kane is part of the, help me, Bill,
Places Platform LLC.
Places Platform. I just had forgot for a minute. Places Platform. And he, unfortunately, our original moderator, who's Chris Lineberger, who many of you know, as he had my position before I took this job, he is ill tonight. So he asked his co-founder to step in. And when we looked at his co-founder's background, we're like, Chris, this is a much better person than you anyways.
Oh, come on, Elaine. We're not going to tell anybody.
Teasing. No, I'm teasing. But seriously, when you look at Bill's background and you hear him today, you'll see that he's been in this industry for a long time. He's worn many, many hats within commercial real estate. And I think he'll be a delightful moderator for three really good speakers. Unfortunately, we did lose a speaker earlier this afternoon due to flights. So I'm sorry to say that Stephanie Gilizan cannot make it. She was with EXP Commercial, but she got stuck in flight traffic. So with that, Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you. What we're hoping to do is take about, the first hour-ish for questions from Bill to the panelists, and we'll be taking questions in the chat box. Rob and I will be monitoring that. And as we come to the end of that, we'll have about a half hour left for questions and answers. And if you have definitional things you want us to kind of clarify as we go along, please go ahead and put those in the chat too, and we'll let Bill know that we want to stop and define something. Because again, this is supposed to be a learning opportunity. We want it to be a dialogue. We want you to go away picking up some new terminology, but also some food for thought in terms of your own businesses, or in the case of the students, it's about half students here right now. In the case of the students, your classes and your careers in the end. So with that, Bill, it's all yours.
Okay, well, I enter into this conversation with kind of a decades-old point of view that real estate, from a point of view of adoption of technology, et cetera, and modernization is actually makes our healthcare system look good. On the other hand, we've now had a circumstance over the last several years where bazillions of dollars are coming into this Proptech. And Proptech is very widely defined. And so this afternoon, we're going to try to go through some of the different silos and how this may all plug and play in the built environment. Really the inversion of a broker's secret sauce to informing the lessor or the tenant about what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. So tectonic change, a lot of efficiency is going to start to appear. And so we have the benefit of Jonathan Iger, who's CEO of Sage. He's an investor. He's a landlord. He's a builder and manager of millions of square feet of primo real estate in my old neighborhood in Manhattan. So with that, Jonathan, do you want to tell us what you're doing, your background, and I'm glad to say you're a GW graduate. So the floor is yours, and I'll go on mute here, and then I'll come back with a few questions.
Sure. I think Bill summed up my headstone pretty well right there. So thank you. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Kaufman-Eager. I'm the CEO of Sage, previously Sage Realty Corporation and the William Kaufman Organization. We're an owner, builder, manager. We've been around since 1924, so we're just a couple years away from our centennial celebration. Our focus really over the last 40 years, has been ground up Class A commercial development in New York City. We owned land, retail development, mixed use throughout the UK. We sold off all of our non-core assets dating back to about 2012 to focus and grow our New York City Class A commercial portfolio, which we own just over 3 million square feet spread across 6 properties today. I joined end of 2010, became CEO of the company end of 2014. And when I joined the company, along with a lot of change management, really took an audit of our systems, our process, our procedures in the first year, and realized, everything was being done on Excel and Microsoft Word, and a non-cloud-based accounting system. Spoke to each department and then interdepartmentally, what are the problems that needed to be solved? Where were the inefficiencies within our process, procedures, our operations? And went out and started looking for the solutions. And this was what we would call, for most of us, the nascent days of Proptech, and found that there were very few solutions out there. And just, I think, fortuitously, as we started to implement and incorporate changes within our own organization, Proptech was really just starting to come to the forefront, and had some amazing opportunities to start to meet with, people who have now become leaders in the Proptech field over the past decade or so, and start to both incorporate their technologies into how we operate our properties. And through that became an advisor and a consultant to a number of those companies. Woke up one day and realized that, they'd successfully now raised their Series B or even Series C, and I had not invested in the company, nor did I ask for much compensation, and realized I was leaving a lot of money on the table, and so started to personally invest in a number of the companies, start to take some advisory shares when offered and when asked. And then a couple of years ago, started an investment vehicle called Sage Urban Ventures, to invest not just in direct prop tech, but also, anything that, touched the built environment, improved, the urban experience. So looked at vertical farming and waste management, energy solutions, and play in all those fields now. Nope.
Yeah.
I think, Phil, you're on mute.
You're
okay.
on mute, Bill.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On the expense side,
that had to happen.
Thank you. On the expense side of your properties, Jonathan, how much innovation and IoT sensor things have you put in, and have you created digital twins, and where are you on the curve of datafication of your expense side?
Sure. All great questions. So easiest one would be around IoT and digital twins. We're very excited by the technology that a digital twin can provide, the level of insight into not just where everything is, but how everything is interconnected in particularly a commercial office building. Mm-hmm. Impact on occupancy versus usage, whether that's electric and water. And I think that becomes so much more important as our buildings today, even brand new buildings in Washington, D.C., brand new buildings in New York, like the ones we've seen in Hudson Yards or One Vanderbilt by S.L. Green. Brookfield's developments around Manhattan West, their redevelopment of World Financial Center, Silverstein's developments, all these new buildings, they were built and property management is set up for how people used to occupy our buildings. They were designed and built, and as property managers, our operations, our process, our procedures are all designed around the assumption that when done right, you have a 100% occupied building, and you are anywhere from 95 to 100% occupied Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Buildings are literally built that way.
Yeah, those days are gone. Those days are gone, right?
Those days are gone. And we don't know what the future is going to hold. But we know that is not going to be the case for the majority of properties out there, or commercial properties out there. Digital twins and other tools and the data that it accumulates provides us with insights that allow us to start to change how we should operate within a property. And I'll talk about one or two of the things, how that actually translates to operations and actual OpEx savings in a moment. Specific to digital.
Can I pop in for just a second, Jonathan?
Yeah, please.
It might help for some, particularly I think the students. Can you just define a digital twin? Because we're starting to get into some of the technical things that, again, those people that have not done much in the way of reading about Proptech may not understand. So just a quick definition of digital twin.
Sure. So a digital twin is truly a virtual representation of a physical site. A representation of a physical site, an asset, a system, a process. And so when we talk about digital twins specific to buildings, residential or particularly commercial, truly visualize in your mind a digital twin, a twin of your building, living digitally, where you can visually see every piece of equipment, and effectively see, if you then layer it, every piece of information attached to that equipment. So you can have everything from the year it was installed, who was it manufactured by, what are the process and procedures for the preventative maintenance, the daily maintenance, the lifetime of the equipment. Alerts can be set up to notify you. You can tie it into your preventative maintenance modules and your advanced preventative maintenance modules, your AP processes. So it really starts with the population of effectively mirroring what you have physically, and then overlaying a tremendous amount of data on top of it. And people are even building programs, just starting to build programs in the Proptech field that will layer on to digital twins, because of just the amount of resources that it takes to build out every component. So a lot of it's about integrations, simply population of data. And now we're actually even seeing a nascent field of companies starting to build digital twins, becoming platforms, and companies starting to build an overlay, whether it's artificial intelligence, to read through all these streams of data as it collects more and more.
Yeah, your description is comprehensive. And of course, this all started with the process plant, i.e. a refinery or a plastics manufacturing line, to create a digital twin to create management of a refinery. And then it morphed into jet engines. So if you're up in a new airplane, an Airbus or a new Boeing, really numbered after the same addresses of Jonathan's properties in Manhattan, the Pratt & Whitney or General Electric is getting sensor signals as that plane flies across the Pacific to the digital twin. And so think of that it's everywhere. Sooner or later, given the way we're going to instrument you with your Fitbit, you will have a medical physical digital twin, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, that is definitely where Fitbit and particularly Apple, right?
Yeah, Apple is going there with the iPhone 13, right?
Yeah. And then so for the building, I mean, I think that's a great analogy, right? For the building, it provides really the insight of the health of your building. And so specifically for us, you know, the technology is exciting. Whatever next property we hope to develop, we would definitely employ a digital twin, because it takes so much human capital to import that existing information in for owners and managers like ourselves, who the majority of our vintage of our properties are from, you know, our oldest property that we developed is from 1963, and the youngest is 1981. The human capital to collate all that data, install it onto a digital twin, put the process procedures, there is not enough of an ROI today. But just like most technologies, the cost will come down, right? I mean, probably a lot of people on this call are too young, but you know, flat screen TVs used to cost $10,000. Now you can get one for $200, you know, from Walmart. You know, that same price compression will occur over time. With digital twin technology, there'll be more out of the box offerings in the future to address kind of the more general user. So that's us for digital twin. But while we have not gone, I would say that is like the ultimate goal. And so what requires the benefit of a digital twin requires as much of your systems being interconnected on the cloud. And that really goes to Bill's question around IoT. And we've made a huge push over the last 4 years to interconnect as much of our mechanical systems as possible. That starts with any commercial office building today should have a BMS. That's a building management system. That's kind of the brains of a property. It controls or allows you to control the heart of your property. So water chillers, you know, it empowers basically. It used to be back in the day that, you know, you would have a startup engineer, right? Literally a human body that would have to come to the building, be there at 6 a.m. and they were known as the startup engineers. And they would be flicking all the switches and making sure that all the systems started to run, balance the systems to get the temperature across the property to where it needed to be, make sure that the electric load on the property, all of that is now interconnected through a BMS, controlled on the cloud. And while we still have an engineer come in at 6 a.m., you know, I can go to my computer and check to see if he or she has, you know, flipped the right switches, and they're no longer flipping switches. They're clicking a mouse.
Good. That's a good segue to Juliana Hess's background and what she's doing, because she fits into this whole in the guts of the building to keep these things. At least that's my impression. So let's turn it over to her and see whether we can feather that in to talk about how we're datafying everything that's physical into the cloud. So Juliana, do you want to tell us a bit about you and what you're doing and how this all feathers together?
Sure. Thank you, William and Elaine. Thank you for having me. My name is Juliana Hess. I am the Chief Impact Officer. Notice that new type of title, but I'll explain. At InsurTech. InsurTech is a pre-revenue Proptech platform, and we're a purpose-driven venture. Our mission is to help the built environment become more sustainable in an impactful manner. And that's a mouthful. I know we navigate the water space. I'll give you the background. Our founders, what they all have in common is real estate development. Our founders have decades of experience in development, whether it is from technology, architecture, engineering, development itself, insurance or risk management perspective. And over a number of years, they came to realize that water was both a threat to the built environment, but from a sustainability perspective, it was a threat to the planet. So it didn't happen overnight. The idea they didn't just sit and put it together on a napkin like a lot of startups like to say. This was a process of years in the making. They realized that while most people are focusing on energy and electricity and carbon, water actually poses a significant threat. And what could we do? What could they do about it? So their process was, if water is both an opportunity to create efficiencies and a cost center, and it's also a problem for the planet, let's start to piece together all the parts of the business that water touches and all the parts of the business where water is either an opportunity or a threat. And the result of that is the creation of what we believe is our own market. We created a platform, is powered by artificial intelligence, and it brings together Internet of Things, different sensors and devices that pick up on information about water, from leak detection to excess water use, water flow, water temperature, humidity, and so on and so forth. Now, we're not inventing anything. That's what MIT and those genius guys are for. What we're doing is thoroughly vetting that all of this technology actually is from an ESG perspective. And if you haven't heard what ESG is, I'm happy to explain that, but I'll explain that in a minute. From an ESG perspective, we want to make sure that they're thoroughly vetted, that they're, from a cybersecurity perspective, they're good enough for, say, Hilton or Marriott or for NATO to have in their properties, that the people building the sensors are not 5-year-old child labor people in Vietnam or whatever. So we really thoroughly vet this technology. We put it in this platform. We have these sensors communicate to each other. And the result of that is we're minimizing water perils. We're identifying them before they happen. We're saving money for the asset manager or the asset owner or the tenant. We're contributing to minimizing health risks, and we're also contributing to minimization of energy and therefore electricity and therefore carbon footprint. So in a nutshell, we're an aggregator. We took what we thought was needed solutions to address water problems within the built environment. I hope that explanation made sense. It's
good. Let me ask to put a bit of color on that. Given that it has the potential to create savings, and that can be quantified. Do you share that? Is your business model that you share that with the tenant or with the owner? Because you've got your rig on the basically on their vanes. You've got all your IoT sensors on their vanes, and you're calculating, and that then goes up into the digital twin. And so do you basically participate in the savings?
The way we are structured, the way we are set up is we are set up as a complete software as a service solution. And the solution is financed over 3, 5, or 7 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. The result of that way is not a CapEx expense.
Okay.
For one, but the other thing is the savings, just to give you some statistics so you understand why water is such a good business to be in, never mind the sustainability angle, is every day in this country, there are about 14,000 water claims. Each water claim is on average $12,000 to $13,000. However, they happen so often that the insurance industries that have abdicated any water-related perils, and they've made the average deductible in the vicinity of $250,000 per occurrence per year. So you have two types of water situations. You have the pipe breaks and you have a ton of water, and God forbid it goes inside into the building and it ruins the conference room, or in the case of somebody that we recently talked to, there was a wedding and it ruined the wedding before the wedding. Or you have the leaking toilet. 1 in every 4 toilets leaks in this country. And that's the one that you don't really see, you don't really feel. But either way, whichever one it is, the money that goes to cure that comes out of a discretionary budget that has been relegated to the facilities person. Executives, leadership boards, they don't really care. But if you're an asset owner and you multiply that times 100, times 1,000, times $1 million, it can become pretty expensive. So what we're saying is we are doing 2 things. We're putting between 20 and 40% of your discretionary budget back into your NOI. And you can take that money and apply to other sustainability projects and comply with new regulation in the sustainability sphere. And we're also helping you conserve water. So say you are SL Green or Tornado or whichever.
Well, Sage.
The fact that you can tell your tenants who happen to be millennials or younger, who happen to care about the environment and about climate, hey, we're saving 100 billion gallons of water a year. Choose us, because we're actually thinking about this. Water happens to be about the energy that goes into creating fresh water for the United States is about 13% of energy use in the United States. As a country, we use about 500 gallons of water per person per day. The closest second happens, I believe, is France at about 50 gallons per person per day. We produce only 1/4 naturally of the water that we need as a country. So the rest of that water needs to be produced by using electricity. And at a time when we're trying to minimize energy consumption and when we're trying to minimize our carbon footprint, an low-hanging fruit, an easy way to do this is by reducing your water consumption.
Good.
And if you can't reduce it by changing your habits, you can at least reduce it by avoiding toilet leaks or kitchen sink drips or avoiding pipe breaks. And that's where we come in addition to the data that, by the way, we're producing a lot of data that our clients will be able to use for strategic or tactical or operational reasons.
Good. You mentioned that you're pre-revenue at this stage. Do you have outside funding, and do you have some candidates, or are you in beta testing with people?
We completed our beta testing, and we're now in pilot mode, and we are doing a series of pilots with the U.S. military and with a big hotel brand. We have about 6 or 7 hotels that are breaking ground in the coming months, and we'll be going into it's a major brand. We have one major investor is Fortune 500 company. The name is Mostech. One thing that I didn't mention is in the process of trying to solve the problem from A to Z, we thought, okay, we can find a technology, but what else do we need? We need to warrant that technology. So we partnered with a company called MIC. They're a microinsurance company, and they just got accepted to Lloyd's of London as the first member of their newest syndicate. They provide microinsurance, and we're going to, when you install our technology, if our devices fail, we're telling you we will cover whatever the deductible is up until your own deductible with your insurance company is triggered. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we're doing is our partnership with Mostech, our investor, means that we have fulfillment power throughout the country. Mm-hmm. Through them, we have installation power in 48 states. And the other thing that we do is we also have partnership with remediation companies, so that, again, in the event that we fail, to give you an alert, and that water, the pipe broke and we didn't tell you, then we will do the remediation and we'll pay for it.
Excellent. So you've got a 360 on that. Let me ask, how does all this technology talk to the cloud? And does that have to go through wires, or is 5G working on your behalf at this stage where it's available?
With that, Bill, can we also, a student had asked earlier, Aaron wants to know a little bit more about the whole Internet of Things. How does this all really work? You guys have said it numerous times. And again, some people on the call are definitely all learning tonight. So if one of you, either Bill or Juliana, wants to just kind of give a quick overview of that Internet of Things, that would be fantastic.
Well, the Kane summary, then I'll leave it to our panel experts who can talk about this, is just putting sensors on everything. And then this goes in and it gets either connected by hardwire or by near field or Wi-Fi or whatever, and goes up into a software as a service, gets aggregated, not aggravated, but it can be aggravating. And that's it. So you look at the whole notion that you have a Alexa, okay, that's talking to your TV, that's talking to your refrigerator, that's talking to your iPhone. So that becomes the Internet of Things. And then, of course, you get the Tesla, and you also get various of the new cars that have sensors. And this is new lingo, but in the process and in the military and in the airframe and aerospace business, this has been around longer than I have. So anyway, Jonathan, you have a point of view, or Mitchell have a point of view to help with the students here?
Also, really quickly, they wanted also for Juliana to mention kind of how she gets her revenue stream, because they're kind of confused on that too.
Yeah, she slipped in software as a service, if I heard you right. But anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Internet of Things. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
That's exactly it. It is the Internet of Things, right? It's effectively any physical object that has a sensor, built-in software, some type of technology that connects and exchanges data. So Apple TV is an Internet of Thing, right? Chromecast is an Internet of Thing. And as Bill said, a Tesla is an Internet of Thing. Any of our cars today, right? With OnStar, any of those systems.
Exactly.
And then the IoT environment is just the interconnected of that. And as again, Bill said, this has been around for a very long time. Now we translate it to in the cloud, but we've had IoT, even though pre-internet, when it was just cellular connection or radio connections. But the way we think of it today is now cloud-based, connected by Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, fiber.
So to add to that and to answer William's question, so we created a proprietary platform where we can bring all of these IoT devices and sensors together. There's plenty of sensors out there, but what they don't do is they don't really communicate with each other. And what a lot of these companies don't do is analyze and aggregate the data. And then even if they did, they don't really know how to use it. And companies don't know how to use it either, because Hilton is not in the business of analyzing IoT data. They're in the business of running hotels. So back to the revenue question, we are a software as a service, which means we get paid on monthly installments. If you contract with us, sign a contract for 3, 5, or 7 years, everything is financed over the course of those 3, 5, or 7 years. And the next step, we are pre-revenue, but the next step, and because we are an impact company, we're driven by ESG principles and sustainability principles. One of the things that we'll look to do with that data is align our data to the various different standards and frameworks that will help companies respond to upcoming regulation.
Exactly. That's very good. That's exciting.
It is indeed.
Okay. Last question for you.
Really quickly, Bill, can you expand why you thought that was so exciting and give us a little promo for our panel next month? Why is that so exciting that they can gather this data?
So I came to the company, again, my title is Chief Impact Officer. My responsibility within the company is twofold. One is to embed ESG principles into the strategy of the company, is making sure that whatever we do, whatever behavior, whatever our actions, that we are having a positive impact on people and planet. And at the same time, understanding our landscape so that we are prepared. We build a resilient business so that whatever external forces, whether social movements or environmental events and regulatory events, may not negatively affect our business. So we create a resilient business. And that to me, is a risk mitigation exercise. With that in mind, what is really cool about InsurTech in particular is that I don't know how much people in this audience know about ESG. It seems to be the flavor of the month, although it is definitely here to stay. But a lot of companies are trying to hurry to say that they're doing ESG and they're embracing ESG. But what companies are responding is, this is going to be hard to implement. It's going to be expensive to implement. Maybe we may or may not do it. I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. InsurTech, through its solution, is one of those rare companies where we're creating financial efficiencies. We're saving money. We're putting money back into your pocket. And even if you've paid for everything to us, you're still going to make money. But we're also conserving water, which is good for the planet.
Good. Hey, we could rotate the ESG conversation to the capitalist sitting here, which is Mitchell Shearer, who I'm sure is completely focused on ESG and how his investments fit into that. And maybe you could just give the group here that's listening for you're doing, Mitchell. What that all means in the coming impact. I mean, the SEC and everybody's just coming down hard on this reporting on the public companies. So maybe you give a minute on that, and then we talk about your background and what's happening with your enterprises.
Sure.
If you'd be so kind.
Sure. So I think that ESG is sometimes well understood, perhaps sometimes misunderstood. For those people on the call, the initials are environmental, social, and governance. So people are often very focused on the E part of the ESG, and there's sort of actionable items that are generally out there and available in the real estate space. The social component of a particular business, how they operate, the governance component, are a little bit more complicated, a little bit more cultural oriented. But with respect to the environmental piece, we have been looking to invest and have invested. If you guys look at our website, in particular, one of the companies we've invested in is called Measurable. And what Measurable does is it first sort of helps people to assess what it is that where they are sort of in the sustainable sort of pipeline, or where they are in the roadmap. Meaning how much energy are they consuming, how much water are they consuming, and just sort of to take stock of where they are today. And then what Measurable also does is helps lots of companies to report. And there are different reporting functions out there in the world. There's an organization called GRESB, which is more dynamic than when we were giving buildings sort of individual designations. It's more of a sort of a real time, but the reason the reporting piece is important, investors, banks, tenants, users, sort of have an ability to check in and see where the building is performing and make some business decisions if they think that's important with respect to to their choice of spaces. And then sort of the final piece is how can that knowledge that's been collected create some actionable uses. So that's a particular company we've been invested in. We have another company called Zentility that's helping people to figure out how to buy power efficiently and effectively. And we have another company called Arcadia, which is involved with community solar. And I could probably spend, a whole bunch of time just on that. So I'll pause there, Bill.
Good. Well, maybe you can give your background, and you're a GW person, I understand, and an investor and a property developer. And maybe you could also talk about the business model of some of these IoT schemes that go to give you a control and return on the business. Some are cost sharing, others are software as a service, others have CapEx, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe you give us a little background in your history, because you've been a very big landlord from what I understand, and now you're into the return on equity. And maybe at the end of that, you could talk about what your criteria is for a Proptech deal.
Sure, and I'll give a little nod and shout out to Jonathan, who I've never met before, but as an owner of real estate. For those of you on the call, he's pretty sophisticated in terms of knowledge. Many of the owner operators that we deal with are less knowledgeable and less sophisticated. So you got a knowledgeable one to share information with. So good for you, Jonathan, and good for the group. Yes, I'm a GW MBA from a long time ago. I took my MBA while I was working in real estate here in Washington, D.C. And my brick and mortar real estate career took me basically to 3 companies, the last of which over 35 years, the last of which was the Vornado Charles E. Smith Company, which was the Washington, D.C. business of Vornado. And we had about 20 million square feet, mostly office. We managed, we developed, we had a lot of land, Crystal City, now National Landing, big holding of the company. And we had about 500 people working in that business. So circa 2012, which was when sequestration happened, that wasn't supposed to happen, when we sort of became, sort of the eye of the perfect storm, where Washington, D.C. real estate had heretofore always been, chugging along, didn't really have any issues, had pretty strong occupancies. So we found ourselves in a situation that was challenged, and the folks on the call may or may not know BRAC, which is base relocation and closure, which also came at a similar time, where a lot of offices were moving out of lease space into some of the forts, Fort Meade, Fort Belvoir, as a result, basically, of what happened in 9/11. So there was a 2005 BRAC that ultimately got executed in 2012. And in Crystal, we were losing, between sequestration and BRAC and other things, about 2 million square feet. So that forced us to really focus on innovation in real estate. Where was demand going to be coming from? What was happening? And what we did off of the Vornado balance sheet is invest in a whole variety of things. We brought WeWork to Washington. We built something called We Live in Crystal City, where we put up about 90% of the capital. We invested in some funds and we told them they had to occupy space in Crystal City, and they were bringing, where they were bringing companies. So we were trying to figure out basically how to create a startup ecosystem. There were several incubators and accelerators. Some of you may have heard of 1776 that we brought to Crystal City. There was a group called Eastern Foundry that we helped incubate, which was a incubator for small government contracts. So we were basically trying to do things to shift the paradigm away from government contractors to otherwise. Ultimately, we landed the biggest prize of all that wasn't even on our screens and our sites at the time, which was the Amazon HQ2. So certainly that, and the Virginia Tech campus. So I mean, it's been like a radical shift from where we were 10 years ago. But the seeds of innovation, that's what got me really interested in Proptech. It wasn't even called Proptech at the time. So after we did after we created the JBG Smith company, which was a spinoff of Vornado, I went on the board of that company, gave up my day job, and started to really focus on Proptech. I worked with a VC here in Washington called Revolution, which is Steve Case, who founded AOL. Ted Leonsis did some work with those guys, and ultimately either wanted to create a platform or join a platform. I ultimately joined as a partner with the other three partners at Camber Creek in 2019. And basically it's a business that is 100% dedicated Proptech, and our limited partners who invest in our funds are basically real estate owners and operators. So sort of our playbook is to have those folks invest with us. They make a top quartile return on their investment, but at the same time, they get a strategic return, which is they learn about what's going on in Proptech. And they may learn about some of our companies, but we learn about the companies that they're looking at, that they're thinking about, that they're talking to, and we invite them to talk to us all the time. So even if we're not investing in a particular company, we're able to help our companies sort of like outsource their innovation, outsource their knowledge. We're looking at 1,000 companies a year with an investment team of 8 people all day, every day. So we have a much deeper sense of what's going on in the marketplace. So I think, Bill, let me pause there and see if I can then pick up on some of your other questions.
Good. So then my questions are very simple. What's hot and what's not? And is there a divide in your mind between Proptech that helps with reduction and risk reduction and expense control, and or tenant flexibility, tenant acquisition, the revenue side of the business? Because of course we've seen a lot going to virtual and different ways of disintermediating the broker and raising the intelligence of the lessee. Okay, so I've got the 2 questions there, hot and not, and then the expense and the revenue side. If you could maybe address all of that.
I'll kind of mush and squish them together a little bit. But on the
thank you.
On the what's hot and what's not, if something's hot, that may not actually be of great interest to us, because it might be some kind of newfangled toy that people are talking about, or some, hope certificate that they may be talking about. And, real estate is relatively, hasn't been disrupted like many, many other businesses. And because it's so old, systems and procedures are sort of in place. And if it ain't broken, people are not that excited about fixing it. So, a typical owner of whether it's multifamily or office or whatever has all kinds of incumbent systems that they're using. And some of them integrate with others, some don't, meaning they talk to each other or they don't. And it's really, people just don't start from whole cloth. They're sort of, if they're an existing business, they're using a lot of different things. So for us, something that might be sexy is just a really simple workflow tool that just makes the business of real estate flow a little bit more easily. And what would be an example of that? It may be just a company that we're not invested in. There's some artificial intelligence that helps apartment buildings in terms of their leasing. So, the people make a home at night at 5 o'clock. You turn the artificial intelligence on, and if someone goes on their website, the artificial intelligence is basically able to schedule an appointment for them to see an apartment, or they may be able to answer certain questions like, what's the size of what's the maximum weight of a pet that would be allowed in the apartment building. And those, very simple questions and very simple answers make the renter's experience just that much more efficient or effective. They don't have to wait till Monday for someone to come back to the office to read an email, to respond or not respond. And those kinds of systems have become so effective that they're using them not only from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m., but they're now using them from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. because they just do better work or quicker work than the humans do. So there's all kinds of workflow opportunities out there. To go back to sort of what Jonathan was saying, about the digital twin, but if you just think of a digital experience of an office building, again, it's pretty fragmented and it's pretty diffused at this point, because if you think of the experience, particularly in the Washington area where there's parking, somebody has some kind of parking technology. They have some kind of visitor management technology. There's some kind of elevator operation access technology. And then sort of the most important thing when they're in their space is some kind of HVAC technology. And, most of these things are just not connected to one another at this point in time. So there are companies that are trying to sort of pull those disparate pieces together. If you went to a building, a Soho China building, on the other side in the East, that would already exist. And, there's lots of privacy issues that are less important over there. So, this is not rocket science that we're talking about, but, somebody should with their phone should be able to have a seamless digital experience as they pass through, an office building or an apartment building, and those things are still coming along. So if you sort of also say what's popular right now, obviously the ESG topic, single family rental, SFR, is sort of a new asset class in real estate. So, it didn't exist all that long ago. Technology has, it's become a tech-enabled business. So if you happen to have hundreds or even thousands of homes that you own and are being rented, that's now become an aggregated asset class because of technology. And technology has enabled that. And because it doesn't have the history and the spaghetti, as I was describing before, of all kinds of incumbent systems, it's actually a little easier to bring some modern technology and systems to owning and operating some disparate family homes. And then I think the other thing that's important is, through IoT and otherwise, a lot of data is being collected, but not a lot of data is being used in making business decisions, whether it's leases, whether it's acquisitions, whether it's dispositions. And, we are looking for companies and entrepreneurs and people in the space to really start to figure out how to use the data that's collected to make business decisions. Because to just, have a company that collects data and sort of spits it back at you, you need a data scientist or somebody in a real estate company to try and figure out what to do with that. So we expect to see many more companies that will be helping, so to speak, through a single pane of glass to help owner operators aggregate the data, dice it and slice it a little bit. And whether that's to make a decision about energy usage or because you see that half your building's empty half the time, or whatever it is, but those things haven't yet connected. So let me pause there as well.
think that's an excellent roadmap for all the entrepreneurs that are on the line in terms of direction, which way to go and where to leverage their experience at George Washington and whatever in terms of creating new ventures and focus. And then, you'll have another 5,000 people showing up at your door asking for funding. So anyway, why don't we open it up for questions? So Professor, what do we do next?
Yeah. Terrific. Well, we just got a really good question from Mitchell. So we'll stay with Mitchell for just a second. And the student, or actually, let's see who it is that's asking. It's Quincy. So Quincy wants to know, when talking about Proptech, can you spend some time talking about the key players that are in the sector, i.e. are they property management owners, or are they, who are they and who's setting the trends? Mitchell, Quincy, did I do a good job on that?
Yeah, you did. Perfect.
I think the easiest way to think about Proptech is to just think about that real estate is becoming more tech enabled. So whether it's in construction, whether it's in development, whether it's in property management, whether it's on the sales end of the business, whether you're selling, leasing, acquisition, disposition funds. So there's just a whole host of tools and opportunities to run an existing business, perhaps in a more effective and efficient basis. So it's not, the question you asked before about expenses and revenues. Sometimes you happen to save a few shekels because you've put something into place. But I think especially with, getting people back to the office and other things, it may just be more about the experience, and that sort of generates the revenue. So I think that there are just lots of ways to bring technology into this relatively antiquated business, and to make it more, bring it into the modern era.
Yeah. So my healthcare analogy was not so off the mark, I think. So there's plenty of opportunity. This is almost greenfield.
It truly is. This is a question from one of our faculty members. She's teaching the development case class, which, for those of you that aren't aware, we have about 6 real estate classes here at GW that are available to our students to take, both the graduates and the undergraduates. In this particular class, she's going looking at buildings and writing cases, and she's trying to, again, bring in ESG, since it is clearly a very important issue. And she wants to hear from each panelist in terms of how would you like to see the students thinking about Proptech, in terms of from your lens, in terms of adding them to their analysis when they're looking at cases. And these are development cases. They could be new, ground up, or they could be refurbished, rehab.
So,
did you want to put the ESG lens to that too?
Well, it's really the Proptech lens. I mean, she's teaching the ESG things, but yeah, you could do ESG as well. But in terms of, again, Elizabeth, if I did not get your question right, go ahead and turn your microphone on. But the idea is, how should the students be trying to incorporate these new trends in terms of their analysis when they're looking at development opportunities? Development case. Basically, that's the idea. It's a
well, why don't we start with the basic item, water savings? That's a good one. Right?
Yeah. Good idea. Yeah. So Juliana, you can start, and then Jonathan, who clearly is a developer, and then again, Mitchell was a developer. So
I came to the real estate industry looking at it through the ESG and sustainability and impact lens. And one of the hardest things for me, kept banging my head against the wall, was trying to explain to people how to quantify ESG and why it was important to embed in the strategy and why it would make a more resilient business. And I found in technology my best friend, because technology allows for an easier way to track, an easier way to measure, an easy way to implement that management of KPIs. So if I'm going to look, using water, I know that there are many, I'm going to give an example, pension funds who invest in real estate and have big positions in real estate. They have a lot of pension funds, particularly pension funds in Europe. They have big environmental mandates in countries like the Netherlands, where looking after the environment is now mandated by their Supreme Court. So they have, as part of the regulation, and no Dutch pension fund is going to invest either in the Netherlands or in Asia or in North America or whatever, in a company that is not taking care of the environment. So companies say they invest in, I'm going to use Vornado because Mitchell mentioned it. Vornado has, they have a big position in Vornado, and they say, Vornado, we want to look at your water consumption and it's a little too high. And what are you going to do about it? So Vornado is going to say, I would like to commit to reducing our water consumption by 15% over the next 5 years. Well, it's very difficult to do that just basing it on your water meters and on your water bills. So having all of these sensors and having that technology is going to help the company learn behaviors and learn patterns within the building, learn behaviors and patterns of the people utilizing the buildings. And it's going to help them make informed decisions. So they're going to say, okay, well, our buildings in New York City are behaving in this way, but our buildings in California and our building in Chicago is behaving in this way. We need to make certain adjustments. Maybe we need to change all the faucets to have new technology so that they don't just stay on when people are washing their hands. And this is all examples. Is the fact that technology has given me the ability to create measurable behavior and has given me the ability to track, that is given me then the ability to defend ESG and sustainability goals and metrics, if that makes sense.
I think it does, and it also from the case that the students are working on in the development course allows them to adopt certain things that go into the initial investment, which future proofs the attractability, the attractiveness to tenants, and equally important to refinancing down the line. Anyway, so Jonathan, do you want to take a role?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think, again, Proptech has become such a large field now, even within Proptech now, we have, construction tech and so on and so forth. From pre-construction, and, if you're a long-term developer, this is your first development. Again, as I think we've all touched on, data's king, right? Peter Drucker's famous statement of, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And, if you've been using a system like Procore, a construction management tool, that provides data analytics and, financial repository that you can touch on to help underwrite the next development. I'm going to plug a company that I've advised for, and Mitchell, I believe you guys are investors in CompStack. So if you're a commercial developer, you're going to be your analyst, you're going to be doing your own market research. But I don't necessarily like to rely on data being compiled by others. CompStack's a phenomenal company that effectively crowdsources and verifies lease comps in the market. They're doing a lot more, but that was the heart of their product to begin with. I'm going to, sign up with CompStack. I am signed up with CompStack, and, I'm going to run a search on their platform for everything that I think is a comp to the building that I'm about to develop. I'm going to use some of their analytics that they've now started to introduce on their platform to understand market trends in that subsector, in that neighborhood, to help inform me what my rental growth is going to be for my development. Am I building to core? Am I a value add? Am I building to sell? To help inform my pro forma. We talked about digital twin. That's a significant investment. I think time is going to tell, if you sell a property and it has a digital twin attached, and over time it shows that that actually reduces costs, that could actually truly impact my cap rate at some point. Well, you know, I could probably go on and on. I mean, you run down the, you know, the entire development budget, and probably every line item, there is a Proptech offering out there that can have an impact. I think what needs to be determined is, and it takes time, it takes working with a firm like Camber Creek, like Fifth Wall, like others, you know, that also can provide advisory services, to really, you know, not become overwhelmed, and highlight the ones that probably, you know, as we would deem, drive the most value, to determine. But you could literally go through every line item, you know, down to your R&M budget, and find a Proptech offering that could impact your development budget.
The only thing I would add to that is we have some owners and operators who are sort of anxious to innovate or anxious to try stuff out, and they're sort of constantly asking some questions. And I think that, you know, we should all focus on the business of real estate, stick with the business of real estate. And I think Jonathan was saying this, you know, innovate where it makes sense. Innovate where there's, you know, either cost benefit, where there's revenue benefit, but not just because there's some new toy out there, but you know, incorporate things into your business where it just makes good sense to make your business better.
Good, excellent. Any other questions coming up or comments?
Go ahead. No, okay.
I was going to say, actually, I have a question, Elaine. If you,
great,
you know,
great, go for it.
You know, and it's in one way self-serving, but it kind of just touches, you know, it's to you, Mitchell, you know, and what you were just touching on. For me, when I'm getting pitched on investments a lot, and I think this is kind of partially what you were touching on, but on the other side, I'm curious your viewpoint as an investor. I sit in front of a lot of people, and they are pitching problems that I don't necessarily believe need to be solved, or I don't see the long-term plan. The way I describe it is, you're trying to sell me a product and not a platform. And I'm curious, for someone, as you said, you know, who's probably got to be looking at 1,000 deals a year now, if not more, as this field explodes. You know, how do you both advise companies that you've invested in, you know, to grow from a product to a platform, or, you know, how, you know, what's kind of that criteria, not necessarily just betting on the jockey, but, you know, the horse itself, and how do you kind of look at that, you know, to make informed decisions of what's going to provide value both to your investors from a top quartile perspective, but also strategically to say, okay, you know, how is this going to provide value to my, you know, single family home investors, my multi investors, my, you know, commercial office investors?
So there's a lot embedded in that, in your question there. So first off, we invest in companies that have already gotten to a certain what we would call traction level. So we're not doing pre-revenue or early seed kind of companies. We might invest. We're stage agnostic, but we're looking for businesses that have a real product market fit. They already have certain, you know, business logos that they've achieved on their own, and the idea would be is that we could really de-risk our own investment by helping them grow and introducing them to a lot of companies. So that's just so by the time we get to a company that has, you know, call it $1 million, $2 million, $3 million of annual recurring revenue, there's sort of certain things that are established or in place. To Jonathan, to what you were saying, you know, about a niche or a platform, We may invest in both. Meaning, if we invest in a something that is a niche, but it's at a stage where it can really grow, and it may exit into a platform where, and you mentioned Procore, Autodesk, some of these very large platforms, they don't necessarily do the R&D themselves. They may be looking at a company that has grown, and then they'll sort of bring it into their platform. So we might invest in a niche, and that's one kind of investment. We might invest in a platform, and maybe that's a little bit of a later stage, but we don't necessarily think of them as one or the other. And then with respect to the users, to the property owners and managers, that piece of the puzzle is, is this company going to, sort of make some meaningful impact? And there are some companies that start out and they're gaining traction and they're gaining customers, but it may be something that the owners and operators really ultimately don't want to pay for, won't pay for. And there's sort of a quick rush to the bottom on that particular product, because the owner or operator may get that through a platform that they're already engaged with as an additional service at really no additional cost. So there's sort of a, where are these products? How are they going to shake out? So we're generally trying to look forward and see if we can, assess and understand and help our owner, developer, managers figure some of that stuff out.
Terrific. Mohammed has a relatively complicated question, so I'm going to have him ask it himself. Mohammed, can you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Mohammed. So I'm in a role right now with my employer, essentially data analytics. I'm a data analyst. And a lot of our properties are affordable housing. They're dated in nature. We collect information to the extent that we can with systems. But my question was, in terms of like new entries into Proptech, the new technologies you're seeing, do these generally apply to maybe older assets, things that kind of just can be tacked on, or is it all kind of shiny and new?
I can take a quick shot at it, and the answer is definitely the built environment, which is massive, and the new stuff is relatively narrow. So most of the goods and services and products ought to be adaptable to existing inventory, because that's where the TAM, the total addressable market, the size of the market is mostly in existing structures.
But is that what is being developed, do you feel? The companies that are out there, is it mostly for existing buildings, or is it really for smart new buildings?
No. I think there certainly are products and technologies that can get incorporated into new builds. But when I was just talking about improving workflows for a building manager, there's lots and lots of things that can be incorporated into the existing built environment. Yes.
And I think you said the key word, the total available market in this country and around the world, with the exception of some of the hyper building that's being developed in the Middle East or China, but that's probably over now. You're dealing with the built environment that's got some age on it. So your products really have to feather in and work. And therefore you have, in my experience, some real integration challenges with ancient systems or zero systems. It could be greenfield. In the case of what Mohammed's talking about, single family or apartment complexes that are probably dated, it's probably a greenfield. That's my view.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is from my experience, a large, I'm not even large, but a relatively large commercial landlord, a large multifamily resi developer owner, particularly more forward thinking, we're able to take more risks as well. And, the impact of making the wrong decision on some new Proptech SaaS platform, or even a couple $100,000 on CapEx, is not going to make or break the day. Specifically to affordable housing, sometimes to, more levered older assets, you need, that appetite isn't there, and you're going to wait longer for a more mature product that's proven out. I think there's some great products around, particularly around HVAC, that have come to market a number of years ago, that are very well suitable to the affordable housing market. But that's a large risk to take, as opposed to, buying a new Siemens product. And you really, you don't have that margin to take, on affordable housing, in particular. So, I see your question, Mohammed, and, some of the best things to invest in are not the particularly the shiny and the new. But I just find that, it depends on risk tolerance. And I think that's broken up by asset type at times, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good points. Really good points. Alex had a question. He wanted to ask it as well. Alex, do you want to turn your microphone on?
Yeah. Hey, thank you. One of the things that I think, talking about just simple prop tech, that I can think of is like the castle system that, employees have to swipe to get in. And I do commercial real estate research at CBRE, and I love using their data on different cities, office reoccupancy, and they even break it down by different industry. They have a special one for law firm. I'm just curious, do you guys see some sort of emerging kind of tech? They're simple in design, just like that, and could offer really good and real hand data that, you guys can have thought about.
I'll plug two that, again, it seems like Mitchell and I are both invested in. Again, it doesn't always need to be the sexy. Jones. This is a phenomenal company. This is insurance certificate management, which is a pain in the neck for any commercial landlord. And this is where I differentiate between, product and platform, because, while they are solving immediately for, streamlining the certificate of insurance process, both on the landlord side, the tenant side, and the vendor side, now you have a three-party marketplace that they're going to be expanding even further, where all the data that they collect becomes a system of truth, a system of record, where they can start to provide additional modules and value to myself as a landlord, to vendors, to help source insurance and to become pre-qualified for insurance in properties. So, I think they will become a major player down the line. And then, from my estimation, on the commercial real estate side, I think, and I will stand by this, 10 years from now, one of, if not the most recognizable name in prop tech, is going to be VTS. So for anyone not familiar with VTS, that was one of the first prop tech companies that I came upon as I was looking for a solution around effectively tracking my deal pipeline for leasing. They started out as a company called View the Space, and operated under that name for many years. with a long-term goal of kind of, becoming a listing service to compete with CoStar. And early on, they pivoted. And again, they always knew that data was going to be at the heart of their product from day one. They just knew it was going to take a long time to build up that data to provide true value. And they are integrated into not everything we do. Because again, as a property management owner, we're in construction, and they inform our decisions around asset management, around our leasing plans, around market research. It's a phenomenal platform, and one that I think, as Mitchell was talking about, that helps inform and data to help inform, make actual decisions into the future. They have stood up effectively the way you would view a Trulia or Zillow marketplace that will grow in the future. But the import of that is on the landlord side, the owner side. In the future, I will be able to get the data from them that tells me that people in the financial district in New York City in the preceding 3 months are most interested in pre-builts, 3,000 to 6,000 square feet that have exposed ceilings, carpets in the office, high-end pantries. I'm serious. And the properties have, and they'll be able to show you, these components using data that's literally going to inform me as I look at my pre-built and I say, oh my God, I've got drop ceilings. My pantry size is 2 times too large. And I'm building 7 offices, and the demand over the previous 3 months and the projected demand is 2 offices and larger conference rooms. They're not there yet, but that is the direction they're going. Yeah. So those would be two call outs. There is no winner take all in this space. There's no Amazon. I don't believe there ever will be an Amazon. But those are 2 in very different stages of their growth. But if there's one name that's going to ring out, 10 years from now as a publicly traded company that exists today, it's VTS.
Yeah, and to some degree, it's not Amazon, but it's Amazonian in the notion of developing a preference engine for the tenants who are basically the revenue side for the owner developer, and it allows you to flex and gives you some ramp time to basically line your products up. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Bill, we have 5 minutes left, so you want to do what you want to do.
To summarize very quickly, I appreciate all the panelists' contribution and patience in defining and also talking about specific opportunities and helping to narrow this very broad area. And frankly, there's more and more money that's going after this. There's more and more opportunity for data scientists, AI, and innovative and entrepreneurial activities. So I think from the student body and then the practitioners, this is an open field that's going to have massive opportunities because, of course, real estate in our country is 43% of the assets of the country. We live in it, we use it, we consume it. So very exciting. So thank you to the George Washington staff and professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And as I always like to close out, I got 2 things to do. One, we have a door prize. So Rob Valero, please give me a number out of the top of your head. Pick a number.
8.
What number?
8.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Eric Abramson. All right. This gives me great honor to, one, recognize one of our young leaders, Eric Abramson. He will, as we mentioned at the beginning, be on our panel for next month. Next month, same time, same place. It's Think Tank Thursdays, every 4th Thursday at 5:30. Be here or be square. And again, that next panel will be on ESG. For those of you that don't know, environmental, social, and governance. We will have Gresby on that panel. We will have Eric, and we've got lots of other really cool people. So please watch for that notice. You don't even have to sign up. It's the same Zoom room. It's Rob's personal room. So you're being welcomed into his Zoom room. And then last housekeeping is just, again, to remind you all that this is meant to be a shared opportunity. We have recorded this. You are welcome to share it with your fellow colleagues, your GW alums. That will be up on our YouTube channel. We have a new intern who's been helping us really kind of try to get our materials out. So please check it out, pass it on, and think of GW when you're thinking about real estate and thinking about what's hot and what's not, because that's what we're trying to bring to everybody and get our students to be thinking about. So again, thank you all for being here. We truly appreciate it, and have a wonderful evening and great weekend. Cherry blossoms are out here in DC. So those of you that are here, go out and enjoy them.
Good.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks
everybody.
again.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.